Beneath the bright sun of Sicily lies a profound tale of overwhelming unease. Dionysius I, a tyrant who made the Mediterranean tremble, harbored a heart as fragile as thin ice. He dared not entrust his neck to a barber, and instead let his daughter trim his beard with scorched walnut shells. Tonight, by the firelight, let us descend into the shadowed soul of this lonely ruler. Some truths are only meant to unfold slowly in the quietest hours of night. Dionysius I spent his entire life building impregnable fortresses, yet could never mend the cracks within himself. He longed to be a great poet, but remained trapped in a cage of power, polishing pale, hollow lines. Follow the gentle narration to experience his absurd fate woven from fear and art. What is true loneliness? Standing above millions, or the despair of having no one to trust? The life of Dionysius I remains one of the most thought-provoking portraits of human nature in classical antiquity. He dug deep trenches around his bedroom and carved ears into prison walls, all for a fleeting sense of safety. In this unhurried story, may the weariness of this tyrant guide you into calm, peaceful dreams. Even more than 2,000 years ago, the night tides of Sicily sounded just as they do now, steady and cold. Inside the deepest palace of Syracuse, a man sat in the shadow beyond firelight, his nerves taut as he listened for footsteps outside his door. He commanded the most powerful fleet in the Mediterranean, yet dared not let a professional barber touch his neck. Instead, he had his own daughter singe his beard with burning walnut shells, for only the hands of blood kin gave him the faintest hope of staying alive. Dionysius I, a name synonymous with brute strength and terror, was also the ultimate paradox, a soul completely devoured by paranoia. Tonight, by the softly flickering fire, let us enter his real life through a story you need not strain to remember. This is a tale of absolute control and crippling insecurity, of how a humble clerk rose to wield immense power, only to become a prisoner of his own fears at the height of authority. As you listen to the faint crackle of burning embers, you may almost feel the weak, trembling breath of that man inside his grand palace. Dionysius I's fate began in an age torn apart by war and unrest. In those days, he was nothing but an obscure low-level clerk in the Syracusan government, sorting through dry, tedious records. Had the world remained peaceful, he might have become a mediocre poet, reciting ignored tragedies in taverns. But Carthaginian warships shattered the calm of the Mediterranean, and Syracuse's elite proved helplessly incompetent in their fear. Dionysius discovered that words could be sharper than swords. Leveraging public despair, he delivered hypnotic speeches at assemblies. He accused generals of treason, claimed only an iron fist could save Syracuse, and every phrase struck precisely at the pain of his times. It was an irreversible turning point. When he first assembled his own private guard, he killed the ordinary clerk within him. He was not born cruel, but he realized with chilling clarity that in this ruthless sea, one must either be hunter or prey. There was no turning back on his path to power, every step rested on the ruins of his rivals. This success brought not joy, but eternal vigilance. From that moment onward, the clink of metal haunted his sleep, and a lifelong hallucination of danger began. When Dionysius I finally secured his throne as tyrant, he found the entire city of Syracuse his property, and his execution ground. On the island of Ortygia, he built massive, unbreakable fortifications, cutting himself off entirely from the people he loved. This separation was physical and psychological. He ordered deep trenches dug around his bedchamber, with only a narrow drawbridge for access. Each night before sleeping, he personally raised the bridge, ensuring no living thing could reach his small, enclosed space. He trusted neither his wives nor his closest officials. Pat-downs before any intimacy turned tender moments into trials. His whole life became an exercise in extreme self-preservation, complete with bizarre rituals. Once, his friend Damocles marveled at how fortunate a tyrant's life must be. Dionysius smiled faintly and invited him to a feast. Damocles looked up to find a sharp sword hanging above his head, suspended only by a single horsehair, ready to fall at any moment. Dionysius watched his startled friend from the shadows, feeling a twisted relief. At last someone understood his constant unease. Beneath the throne of power lay not soft velvet, but a bed of needles, leaving him unable to rest even on the calmest afternoons. To survive this game of loneliness, Dionysius I elevated his paranoia to an art form. In the quarries of Syracuse, he ordered a huge cave carved into the shape of a human ear, the famous ear of Dionysius. Thanks to its unique acoustics, the faintest whisper from prisoners deep inside echoed amplified to a secret chamber at the top. Dionysius often sat alone in that dark little room for hours, greedily catching every curse and plot spoken about him. To him, those venomous words felt more real than flattering praise, granting him a distorted sense of security. He wandered the darkest corners of human nature, trying to eliminate fear by learning everyone's secrets. Yet the more secrets he heard, the more menacing the world appeared. He began to see a dagger behind every smile. He drained all his energy governing into endless eavesdropping and suspicion. This mental torment darkened his expression, until his eyes held the defensive ferocity of a wounded beast. The times pressed in on him, the Carthaginian threat loomed, but the web of doubt he wove around himself squeezed him most tightly. Dionysius I had one highly unconventional outlet, a fanatical passion for writing tragedies. Beneath his blood-stained rule lay a deep longing for recognition from scholars and poets. He repeatedly sent his verses to the Olympic Games and forced the entire city to listen to his ornate but empty readings. When the philosopher Philoxenus bluntly declared his poetry terrible, Dionysius flew into a rage and threw him into the quarries. Yet the next day, fear of his own mediocrity overcame his anger. He released the philosopher, hoping for genuine praise. His artistic obsession was really self-compensation for his fragmented personality. A giant in politics, he remained an emotionally insecure, love-starved child. He chased immortal greatness his whole life, yet could only affirm his existence through violence and intimidation. This contradiction peaked in his later years. When one of his tragedies finally won a prize in Athens, he collapsed in revelry from excessive drinking. It was fate's final irony. The literary fame he pursued his entire life became the very thing that hastened his death. Dionysius I died at dawn, drunk and reeking of wine, at the very height of his territorial expansion. To answer the question from the beginning, did the man who clutched razors and slept behind drawbridges finally find peace? History records no last words, but we can imagine that in that moment, the murmurs haunting his ears finally fell silent. He left behind a powerful Syracuse, and a vivid portrait of how power corrupts the soul. Dionysius I proved through a lifetime of struggle that without trust, ruling the world only means owning a larger prison. Tonight the fire has dimmed, and those ancient fears and ambitions have long turned to dust on Sicilian soil. Carried by this gentle story, soothed by Dionysius' finally quieted weariness, sink into deep, peaceful sleep. You need build no fortresses, fear no moonlight. On this soft night, you are completely safe. Good night, and may sweet dreams return you to an innocent world where no sword hangs above your head.